you studied and became a Christian minister.
Of course, yeah.
And then you became Muslim. And I'm wondering if the hate, I mean, you were a lot older. You probably left Kentucky. But you were a lot more famous at this point. Were you getting hate? Maybe not the same type of hate. And I say this because I just want to preface this. Yeah. Because I noticed little things like this, like my friend, shout out to my friend Lost Lyrics. We do stand up together, and he took a shahada last year. And funny enough, I'm on tour with 3 comedians, and one of them gave shahada, was a witness for the other one to become Muslim. So now all 3 of us are Muslim.
Yeah. If you hang around Muslims enough, you will become a Muslim.
Yeah.
Like after a while, because, not to interrupt you.
Yeah.
And not to insult Christians, but Muslims have daily habits. The average Muslim lives a daily life that the average Christian doesn't. Mm-hmm. Like the average Christian doesn't pray where you see them praying. Mm-hmm. And so suddenly when you're traveling with Muslims, you start to see, I mean, I've said this as someone who traveled with Muslims before I became a Muslim. You start to compare your life to their life. Mm-hmm. And you start to ask, why am I not doing this? Mm-hmm. Like, even in November of 2023, I was with some brothers in the UK. I was the only non-Muslim with them. And on Fridays, they would go to prayer and they would leave me in the car. Mm-hmm. And I remember the second time they left me in the car, I thought, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not going to. I had already, 3 or 4 weeks earlier, I had already told Sheikh Omar Suleiman that I was thinking about becoming a Muslim. I'd even traveled to Dallas and spent time with him to talk about it. And as the brothers were leaving me in the car, I was just thinking, like, I don't belong in the car. And so, like, these brothers that are with you, like, when you spend time around Muslims, it causes you to ask questions that everyday American life don't cause you to ask.
For sure.
And so when I became a Christian because in Kentucky in 1996.
So prior to this, you weren't anything.
No, my mother, and let me tell you something that I've recognized, and this will help the two of you and anyone who sees it. Because my mother was very much, this is not different than many born Muslims. My mother was born into a family that was very passively Christian. Mm-hmm. They weren't practicing. My mother did not go to church. Her mother didn't go to church. But when they would take a census, they would probably check Christian. Mm-hmm. I have met Muslims all over the world who live the same way. Mm-hmm. They were born into a Muslim household. They may or may not even be praying. They think of themselves as Muslims, but they're not practicing in the way that maybe the 3 of us are. Mm-hmm. But because I didn't grow up in church and only slightly thought of myself as a Christian growing up, I actually unconsciously, as a kid, I resented this, that a lot of people that I grew up around seemed to have like an anchor in a faith. Now I see the wisdom of Allah in it for me. Because I didn't have these deep roots in Christianity, when I finally came to like truly understand the truth of Islam, I didn't have something that I thought I would be abandoning from my childhood. Mm-hmm. So like if when I learned, I cried when I first heard this hadith, and I'll just tell it in story form. When Abu Bakr, when his father first embraced Islam, his father was near death. I mean, his father was closer to 100 than he was 60. And by this time, Islam was firmly established in both Mecca and Medina. And when through great effort, they brought his father all the way to the home of the Prophet, peace be upon him. And the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was so happy, like elated that this man who was as close to him as a brother, that his father had embraced Islam. And Abu Bakr begins to cry, and it surprised everyone in the room, including the Prophet, peace be upon him. And he asked him, Abu Bakr, why are you crying? And he just told him, he said, I would trade my father embracing Islam for Abu Talib embracing it.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I know how much you loved him. And he said, I would do anything, including my father switching roles. And it reminded me, because I realized if our own Prophet, peace be upon him, could not through his own power convince Abu Talib to embrace Islam,
Mm-hmm.
and then how can you through your own power do it? Or how can I, if the greatest among us could not do so? So for me, Abu Talib, he had these deep roots culturally. Like, he felt like to become a Muslim would be to abandon his people. Mm-hmm. And it was noble. It was a beautiful, it was that trait that allowed him to defend the Prophet, peace be upon him, for so many years. Well, I didn't have that. Those deep roots that Abu Talib could not disconnect himself from. I just didn't have them. And what I'm noticing is, I would say, as I've traveled as a new Muslim, when I travel, 75% of the reverts I meet were not raised in deeply religious households. And it allowed all of us to more easily pivot than, say, my own wife. Like, my path versus my wife's path, very different. Mm-hmm. She was born a Christian, raised this way. And by the time I met her, she had 15 years where she spent 3 or 4 days a week in the church. And by the time I met my wife, I had maybe visited a church like 5 times. She had probably been 1,000 times, more than that. And so, like, think of what it would take for you. If I asked you, I've asked audiences this, what would it take for you to become Jewish?
Yeah.
You'd be like, Shaun, if I paid you $10 million, would you embrace Judaism right now? You'd be like, no. It's an impossibility for you.
Yeah.
But there are lots of reasons why that is. It's almost impossible for anyone to pivot to a new religion.
Yeah. Later on in life. And I think, had I really been raised as a proper Christian, I probably, Allah knows best, but it would have been much more difficult. Yeah. You know, and in that story here, when I was on tour with these 3 brothers, the brother who just took a shahada mentioned it on stage. Now, some of his audience members that come are not Muslim. So when he's like, I just took my shahada, and people naturally clapped. And another girl saw her friend clapping and goes, like, swipes her hands down.
Yeah.
Like, don't clap for that.
Yeah.
And he noticed. And I know, we all noticed.
Wow.
It got very awkward in the room.
Yeah.
And just little things like that. I know, like, she didn't say
it would have been
nothing.
great for him to be like, hold on.
Yeah.
Did I just see you? You know, like, on the, like, because, you know, like, crowd work is an amazing thing. You know, it would have been hilarious, but like, hold on.
Yeah.
Sister, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but did I just see you slap her hand right now?
Exactly.
And the audience would have loved this. But in the moment, it's so personal. It's like, hold on.
Yeah.
Wow.